bitches go.
We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego Unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Wow. It looks like Dillian Whyte, after beating Rivas to become Deontay Wilder's mandatory, could actually have that rescinded or reversed by the WBC. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing if you want to become part of the gang. Notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Let's jump right into it. In case you live under a rock, Dillian Whyte failed a drug test, and his team, per legal reasons, they haven't really said much to refute the claims. They said it's a legal matter, and thank you for your patience, and we're advised legally not to speak by our lawyers. Now, it looks like he had the components, metabolites, things that are usually found when you have anabolic steroids in your system, right? Things like Dianabol. Now it keeps going from sugar to shit. The WBC talked to Lance Pugmire of The Athletic and gave their spiel and their take on it. Now, just to catch you guys up, make sure you guys smash the like button for all your latest boxing news, some thoughts, and coverage of the fights and that type of stuff. But long story short, Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearns had been on this quest and pilgrimage to fight Deontay Wilder, even though they could have fought Joshua, who was an in-house stablemate, and they could have made a title fight, and Joshua has more belts, but they couldn't agree because of money. They allegedly were ranked high with the WBC, along with Deontay Wilder's actual mandatory he just fought and knocked out, Dominic Breazeale, and they said they've been waiting 600 days, but we all know that's false. He hasn't been ruled as the actual mandatory. He was just highly ranked. Long story short, Eddie Hearn, after Joshua lost conveniently, when Eddie Hearn started putting more energy into the career of Dillian Whyte, Eddie Hearn came out and said, we would push for potential legal actions if this is not resolved with the WBC. We've been waiting 600 days. Had this big pity party so the fans could try to get involved and whatnot, saying that Dillian Whyte has been, used and abused, and he should have been Wilder's mandatory 600 days ago. Wilder should have fought him, yada, yada, yada. And if they don't get their way, they're going to sue. So there was a hearing with the WBC committee, and they have the jurisdiction, the final say, and they deemed the winner of Dillian Whyte versus Oscar Rivas, which just happened on DAZN. They deemed that winner the interim WBC champion at the heavyweight division, as well as the mandatory. But it was not going to get in the way of Wilder's immediate plans, which is to fight Ortiz and then possibly Fury. So they did all of this to get Dillian Whyte, or at least the winner of the Dillian Whyte Oscar Rivas, which was Dillian Whyte, to become the mandatory and the interim heavyweight champion. Then Dillian Whyte fails a drug test. So you can see how fucked up this has immediately become. You threatened to sue. You were at odds with the WBC publicly. And now they're in the position yet again to look at the facts and determine if Dillian Whyte is deserving of the mandatory position. And that's where we're at. Shout out to Lance Pugmire. He spoke with Mauricio Sulaiman. He said, here's what the WBC president, Mauricio Sulaiman, told The Athletic Boxing on the Dillian Whyte situation. We have initiated conversation with the British Boxing Board for full communication of what occurred, and once we have that information, we will initiate due process. Right here, this is the important part. I don't want to speculate right now, but we are empowered to rule. We are not recognizing this as a result that qualifies the winner for a mandatory title fight, explained Sulaiman on Dillian Whyte. And shout out to Mind of SP. You see, he tagged me right here beneath this. And, I've been in Baltimore covering the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. Had a great week there, and I'm back. So I'm just getting around to making this video. Horrible. I don't want to speculate right now, but we are empowered to rule. We are not recognizing this as a result that qualifies the winner for a mandatory title fight. So in layman's terms, let Ego break it down for you guys. Smash the like button. Is this based on the due process and the information we receive? We can determine if this was a legitimate win, which catapults Dillian Whyte, who won the Oscar Rivas fight, to become Wilder's mandatory. So let's break it down even further. Dillian Whyte is in a fucked up position. Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte are on this crusade targeting the WBC, accusing the WBC of protecting Deontay Wilder. And now they're once again, after the WBC gave them their way, despite the insults from Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte was like, oh yeah, Wilder phoned the WBC. He was basically talking shit, saying that he phoned the WBC to get protection and this, that, and the third. And, really insulted the WBC's character and integrity, right? And now, with all that you said and done, is back in the WBC's hand, and they can overturn their decision that they already granted Dillian Whyte. They said the winner of Dillian Whyte versus Oscar Rivas becomes the mandatory. Now they can rescind that based on what they find. This is terrible for Eddie Hearn, Rematch Room, and Dillian Whyte. This is terrible. You did all of this fussing and fighting to become the mandatory, and then you finally get your wish, and you have something in your system that is not supposed to be. Now, further than that, also of The Athletic, Mike Coppinger spoke with Victor Conte, who was involved in Balco and Shane Mosley, a lot of stuff, researched the name, and now he has a snack program. But he was involved. He's like a peds guru who was involved in that whole underworld of PED. So he's very well versed. These guys are basically like scientists and chemists, and they know what works with what and how to beat tests and these different types of things. And he stated from his professional opinion to The Athletic that Dillian Whyte it's pretty much the fact that he had these metabolites in his system. This is evident and evidence that he had something in his system. Now, the question is, there's different ways something can get in your system. Did someone spike something you took? Did you willfully do this? Did you, intentionally put something in your system because you're cheating? Or something else like cross-contamination, like you took a supplement and it was contaminated, these types of things. So now Dillian Whyte has to, clear his name. And another reason this is horrible for Dillian Whyte, aside from everything else, you really fought and did all this stuff to basically beg and threaten for the Wilder mandatory, and then you got your way. So it seems like, boom, you did it. You got exactly what you said you wanted. At some point, Wilder is going to have to be mandated to fight you. Now, according to the WBC, per their investigation and what the information that they get, they have final say. They could be like, nah, under fair terms, we were going to authorize the winner, which happened to be Dillian Whyte, to become the mandatory. But now, with this bullshit that happened of failing, despite whatever his reasons is, they don't have to honor that. And despite all of that, Dillian Whyte has already failed a drug test before in the past. So, for those reasons, it doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look good that you've already failed a drug test and now you failed another one for any reason. Beyond that, what looks terrible is Oscar Rivas has he has two promoters basically, GYM, Yvonne, Michael, and Top Rank. And they said they had no knowledge of this, just like the report suggested. They had no knowledge. Here it is. This is Oscar Rivas' representation. Nobody told us anything regarding this situation before the fight or even after. We only learned the information through medias. We are now collecting information wherever it is available, and we will take our advices in order to protect Oscar Rivas' interests. And look, some people are saying you better sue UCAD and Matchroom, or you have to take blame. You have been too nice. You know, people are saying, hey, you got to do something about this, right? Oscar Rivas' people, he said, we are still amazed on what has happened, and more, we don't understand what has been the overall process. If Whyte tested positive for PEDs, why has he been cleared to fight on? On what grounds? What rules? That decision has certainly made a huge impact on Oscar Rivas' future in and outside of the ring. And that's what everyone wants to know. That's the $1 million question. The BBBFC, UCAD, Matchroom, whoever, how can somebody fail a drug test, not advise the opponent who has to risk their life? And we've just seen fighters recently lose their life in the sport. They have to risk their life by fighting them, you know, whether someone's on something or not. But especially if someone happens to be on something or have something in their system, right? And they don't even get advised. They're completely left in the dark about a failed test. How is that fair? How is that right? You know, and they're saying the fight was allowed to continue. Of course it is. If the other side has nothing, they don't even know that Dillian Whyte failed a drug test. So what is it? Who can object at that point? How can anyone object to the findings or the fight not continuing if only one side, the guilty side, is the one that knows? So as far as I'm concerned, the UK looks very sketchy for this. It looks very sketch. Everybody involved, it looks like a total cover up, and it's just a bad look because, again, at the end of the day, failing the test, he's a second time offender. That's whatever. He has to clear his name on that. But the fact that Oscar Rivas was never made privy to this information and he had to just fight someone who did fail a drug test, whether he was cleared or not, because we don't know who cleared him. We don't know what was deciphered or discerned in the hearing. Nobody knows. Where's the hearing? Do they have a stenographer who typed out everything? What was presented? Nobody seems to know the facts. So it just looks suspect, like something, some backhanded deal. But I still don't see from an ethical code of conduct point of view how anybody can have a hearing and the other person has no say in their career, in their future, and they have to fight him. You know, so there can be no objections. You don't even give them that's what makes it all the more suspect. You don't even give them the opportunity to object or pull out of the fight. Say, hey, we're not fighting this dude. Because whatever Dillian Whyte presented or his people presented in the failed drug test, right? That's one thing. But that could lead to objections from the actual, that could lead to objections from the actual opponent. Just because UCAD or BBBFC, the British board, approved Dillian Whyte, that might not be copacetic with your opponent. Your opponent might not believe you. You know what I'm saying? So how can you, alienate this situation to just the party who failed the test? How can you take that away from the fighter and not even give them the opportunity to have a piece or an opinion on it? That looks crazy. That looks completely crazy. So, this is blowing up. This is blowing up. And this is the Mike Coppinger piece. It says, even in ultra trace amounts, Victor Conti notes the performance enhancing benefits are powerful. Right? So he's saying even if you have trace amounts in your system, even if you have minuscule or what is perceived as minuscule or nanograms or something, the benefits are powerful. Quote, this is from the Athletics piece. When you are using anabolic steroids in conjunction with resistance training, once those gains are made, they carry on for months, he said. Dianabol would tremendously increase speed, power, and strength, according to Victor Conti, who again is a PEDs expert, and he was involved in that. So he says, even if you had trace amounts, this is stuff that lasts in your system for months because you've already done the workouts, you've already made the gains. He said, for instance, if a world-class sprinter wanted to start doping in the fourth quarter of 2019, the benefits of use would carry over into July and August when the 2020 Olympic Games are underway in Tokyo. Wow. So basically you can, the year before that's why it's called a cycle. That's why people cycle on. And then when it gets closer to the time, they're like, all right, and then they get off of it and they start doing their testing. That's why people do the random blood and testing, so you can't conveniently pick your cycle. You know, this is gonna be very big for boxing. You know, the outcome, and we're gonna find out some interesting things. The side effects of Dianabol, a steroid that's been around since 1955, are harsh, Conti said. It causes liver disease. It causes acne like crazy. It causes your hair to fall out. It's a harsh anabolic steroid. It's widely available out the back door of probably every gym in the US and the UK. So he's basically saying it's a black market drug. There are three possibilities in a situation like this where an ultra trace amount of substance is discovered, according to Victor Conti. Whyte could have ingested a legal supplement that was cross-contaminated in the lab when the glassware used to cook and capsulize the drug wasn't properly cleaned. Another possibility remains that Whyte was spiked with the substance, which, you know, I don't know who did that. You know, what team are you working with that would spike you? I'm saying it's plausible, but come on. You know, someone just slipped you a Mickey. Come on. It's also possible, Conti observes, that an athlete knowingly used the substance and miscalculated the clearance time. Again, if you're trying to cycle on and off and you thought you could flush it out your system and remnants of it showed. Quote, these are the questions that are scary in this day and age, Conti said. How easy would it be for someone else who wanted to bust you to sprinkle the drug on your eggs to put in your protein shake at the ultra trace amount? If someone wanted to say, look over there and sprinkle over your eggs, they could. Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but I feel like millionaire boxers, guys who have made some purses, how come this is not happening to? So just because you have money or you're a big star, or, you know, Dillian Whyte's somewhere in the middle, probably, like, why is this not happening to lower level boxers who really can't control who's preparing their food because they don't have the finances and the budget, you know? You've heard every dog ate my homework type of excuse. What do you do when you go to the commission, have a case? You know, you have some sort of exceptional circumstances. If Whyte tries to say, I got it by taking this product, then you have all those products analyzed and you find out one has been cross-contaminated with Dianabol. Could that happen? Yeah, but here's the problem. Dianabol is not sold anywhere legally in the world. Wow, now we're getting somewhere. See, I didn't even read that part. So it would come from some underground black market fringe product. It could be sold on the internet. Use glassware when you manufacture drugs, flasks, beakers. You put this powder in, you cook it, and you get it into tablet form. You make a batch of this, batch of that. You typically use very strong cleaning agents like nitric and chloric acid. Wow. Together in any legitimate lab, they do a better job than any underground lab. So this is some hardcore shit, bro. You know, and then if no product should contain it because it's not sold legally, so that means you probably had to get it on the black market. You know, we'll see how this plays out, but it's not looking good. You know, just to be frank and be honest, Victor Conti, he definitely knows that world of performance enhancing drugs. So I think he's an executive, like, ambassador on cheating the tests, and you know, he just knows that for all that stuff from Balco. So this is a bad look. The other thing is, look, he posted Gerald Miller failed in the drug test. Dillian Whyte failed before. You know, the pressures are definitely growing because he's, you know, kicking down the door of a title fight. Who knows what people do in those given situations? Doesn't mean he's guilty 100%, but he hasn't really said much to clarify his positioning. And one thing he did say that's kind of circumstantial evidence but incriminating is he accused Joshua of being on something, and he says this shit is easier to get away with. He looked bad in the Andy Ruiz fight is because he's on something. He's on twos, testosterone exemptions, and it's easier to get these exemptions and, you know, get the black market shit in the UK than it is in the United States. So how would you know that? You know, maybe you did something. We'll have to see how it plays out. Not a good look, but the WBC says they got the ultimate say. And after all this work, all this banter from Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte, they let this happen. You know, they let this happen. This is unbelievable. And like I said, Victor Conte, he's just playing devil's advocate, so he's giving plausible ways it could have gotten your system. But how come it didn't get in Floyd's system? You don't think people hate Floyd? You know, someone cooked his eggs and sprinkled some bullshit on there. Why? How come it didn't get Andre Ward's system, Deontay Wilder's system? You know, there's several other people who have had high profile fights. And to my knowledge, Roberto Duran, and, you know, he has crazy power. Julio Cesar Chavez, I don't remember them being involved in any kind of scandal. So how come you don't think someone just robbed Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. in Mexico City? So you don't think he had people from, you know, different parts of Mexico who didn't like him for whatever reason, or got jealous or envious. So, you know, him being spiked, it's a possibility, but, you know, what happened the first time when Dillian Whyte failed a drug test, you know? So it's either way, it's a bad look, and you lead people to speculate, especially when you can't answer it. Beyond all that, how did this get approved? How did the fight get pushed on? Even if it did get pushed on, how does it get pushed on without Oscar Rivas and his team even knowing that a hearing happened? They're just thinking it's a regular fight night. We weigh in. So that makes it look even more suspicious. Let me know what you guys think. WBC says, depending on what they find, Dillian Whyte might not be the mandatory for Wilder. So I can't wait to see the fans, old media, try to blame Wilder and say, oh, look, the WBC protecting Wilder and all this bullshit. Wilder didn't do this. You think Wilder spiked Dillian Whyte? You know, Wilder's not responsible for what's ingested on Dillian Whyte's side. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.